Hello, Ann Tardy. It's so great to be interviewing you, Ann. As you know, you were a client for some time. I was so impressed by what you're doing in the field of mentoring and developing your software. And you have this amazing newsletter, which we'll talk about later, that you send out. And you're one of the brightest, most productive clients I've ever worked with. No kidding. And so I really was looking forward to interviewing you for Ordinary Visionaries. So tell us, how are you an ordinary visionary?
Such an interesting term, and it really made me think. And I loved it. So thank you for the invitation, and thanks for being part of my journey. So ordinary visionary, when I look at that concept and I think about my own journey, I think back to how I even started the business. And I bet everyone who's listening, that is, it takes an ordinary visionary to even start a business. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened is I saw a problem and I thought, well, I could solve it in a different way. And Robert, would you say that's what an ordinary visionary is when you describe that? You put something into action in a different sort of way?
Yeah, and I emphasize to make a difference in some way. And I think everybody who starts a business wants to make a difference, make an impact, solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to make a killing or just to make
Right.
money, and they don't really care about how they make it. They do anything to make money.
That's a good point. That's a nice distinction. I like that.
Yeah.
So I think back to how, I mean, I've had jobs I've done just to pay my mortgage. I had my own law practice because I needed to keep paying my mortgage. And I could count that as being an entrepreneur, but it wasn't until I actually invented this business that I saw a problem. I wanted to solve it, and I really felt passionately about that and knew that it could make a difference because I could just kept practicing law. I mean, it became super easy after 15 years to just uh, keep reviewing contracts and helping small businesses start up. I could have kept doing that, but seeing that there was a problem out there, then I would look at that as the turning point of being an ordinary visionary. So here's the story. I was practicing law, paying the mortgage that way. I had this itch to want to do something, wasn't quite sure what. Started speaking, started doing workshops. I dabbled a lot. I created a
What
conference.
topics?
Good question. Entrepreneurship, because I knew that well. Um, a little bit of law. I was trying to think of what do I know that I could do a topic on. Then I really enjoyed speaking, I enjoyed writing. I thought, well, one way to actually get out there is to have lots of topics. So you would say, can you talk on? And I'd say, of course I could. And then I'd go and research it and topic.
Nuclear physics. Oh, no problem.
I got this. I got this for you. So yeah, I talked on anything you wanted me to talk on.
Wow.
And well, it helped improve my confidence standing in front of other people, being a public speaker. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm always improving that, but coming up with new audiences and new topics forced me to do that a lot. I have, for the first time this year, now I've been in business 20 years now. This is the first year that I've said, I'm not creating a new topic. You're going to pick one here or I'm not your person. That's the first time I've said that. So that's been really empowering. But going back to my story, lots of different topics. I meet this woman who, at a conference, who worked in an employee resource group at PG&E. And we hit it off and she said, well, what do you talk about? And I said, let me show
You
you
name,
the list.
you name it.
What's on your mind. I can
Yeah.
talk about that. So I started throwing out words. And one of the words I threw out was mentoring. I could talk about mentoring. I didn't know why that word was in my head. So mentoring or leadership or communication, or I was throwing words out there. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So I hadn't heard from her in months. She calls me one day and says, we're going to do a dog and pony show we're trying to launch a mentoring program, and you mentioned that word. And I had to kind of go, I did? Okay, sure. Can you come and pitch a mentoring program for us?
Yes.
Only someone who lives in Silicon Valley could actually go, yeah, I can do that. So I go, that sounds great. I will be there.
Isn't that so funny how a connection happens like that?
Oh,
What if you had said embalming?
I know, right? Bob, yes, exactly. So, so she says this. I say, of course I'll be there. And then I thought, well, what is mentoring? What am I going to pitch? How am I going to be different? How is it going to be? What's the vision? To your point, being an ordinary visionary, what's the vision I have?
Yeah.
So I thought about this and thought about this. So at the same time as this was happening, my mom, who had been widowed a few years prior, she was ready to start dating again. And I said, good, I'm going to get you out there. I opened my computer and go, let's fill out that Match.com application. And as I was doing that, I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if we did mentoring in a similar way? People could present themselves and get connected and create those relationships off a platform. So when I showed up to PG&E and I said, I have this platform. I didn't. That was my really only line. I said, I got this platform. We should do mentoring.
You had a platform in your head anyway.
Yeah, I said, we should do mentoring like Match.com. You have these offices all over California. Let's bring them together so they can match with people outside of their office. We should really create something that was bigger than a 3-ring binder. And I looked, and no, I got to tell you, Robert, it wouldn't happen today because of cybersecurity and IT departments and just the nature of business. And I mean, this was 20 years ago, so the internet was fairly new. Social media was just launching. It was all very new.
Yep.
But I was there, and I said, let's try this. And they asked a few questions. I didn't lie too much. And then they said, well, thanks for coming. And I left. And they called me a few months later and said, it was unanimous. We picked you. I remember where I was. I was at a corporate place in Chicago at a different conference. And I remember thinking, okay, who do I know that could program that? And I happened to know some guy who did a little coding. Now, even that's different. You on Upwork and find a coder. I mean, things are so different because you have access to so many people. But I hired a coder and we created a platform and we launched it a couple months later. And that's what started it.
Wow.
And I knew it would be different. I just didn't know how much I would really enjoy and sink into the concept of mentoring and bringing people together on a learning journey and creating the community that organizations are missing so much of. And what much more of a need it would become because the more we look at technology, the less we need to talk to each other. And so the need for mentoring has just grown. And I can't say that was my vision. I just knew it would make a difference.
So that's your origin story. So
that's the origin story. That's how it started. And having the vision I had was just in the moment. It wasn't years ahead, but I have since created this vision now. So basically I built this company around this one project and started pitching it. I got into Hitachi after that. I thought maybe I'll lean into utilities. I got Southern California Edison when that person left PG&E and went to Edison. I thought, well, maybe I'll go to more utilities. I went to Duke Energy. I went to Ameren. So I got those. And but then I changed everything in 2018. Yeah, 20, well, more like 2015. I changed everything to healthcare. When I got Stanford, when I got Stanford and ACNL, which is the Association of California Nurse Leaders, then I changed everything for a number of reasons. One, I knew the need was bigger in healthcare. And two, I really enjoyed working with the people I met in healthcare. And that's not to say anything about who I met and worked with in utilities. It's just a different, just different folks, right? I moved from HR to now the clinical side, working with a lot of nurses, and I just really enjoyed it. And I saw what a even bigger difference our mentoring programs would make. So now I've shifted, and now we have hundreds of healthcare systems and programs.
Let's just back up a little bit. So,
Yeah,
just with that first client, you created the first rudimentary version of your software, and we've talked about this in the past. You invested something like $1 million in your software
easily.
over several
Yeah,
years, right?
yes. It was not an easy
Yes,
thing, I would tell you.
but it wasn't like your ordinary Silicon Valley startup where you had zillions of dollars of investment. It was very much bootstrapped, right?
No,
You
it
did
is
your
only
first
been,
version, and then you got
it's only been
what's that?
bootstrapped. It's only been
Yeah,
bootstrapped, and that's it. And I will tell you that I leaned into my law degree. I continued practicing for a while. I leaned into my speaking. I would go and speak at conferences and get paid, and I would say, now I can pay some more programmers. I would just say that. I go, okay, I'm going to go speak for a couple hours so I can pay some programmers. And that's what I kept doing, was just how could I make some money to keep the programmers going?
right. And the software is essentially a way that mentees and mentors can connect online. So you have a particular channel for that organization, and then it's just back and forth communication. Here's an issue I've got, and now I would assume people would also talk on the phone or perhaps in person as well, right?
Absolutely. The platform allows for the connections to happen, for the materials and the training to be available. I
Yeah,
create a lot of webinars so that I'm creating engagement for them. And then it
yeah,
helps the program leaders to measure success in a more effective and efficient way. So now they are able to see that they're engaged in what they're doing. It's not just a survey. We're actually looking to see that they're working together, and we can see that through their actions on the platform.
Now, do they have a supervisor or manager above that can check in with people that are being mentored, or how
Um,
does all of that work?
Yeah, typically the managers and or their supervisors are not involved. It is unless it's part of the program design. But typically, mentoring is designed where it is a development, as if I went to a workshop or went to the library and checked out a book. I'm doing it on my own, and my manager isn't involved, unless again it was part of the design, like an onboarding program. That managers
Yep,
are involved.
yep. Okay. So let's get into the essence of mentoring. It's funny, you were at that place at one time and that word came out.
Isn't it? I mean, seriously, I just threw words out.
Yeah, and who knows? If you hadn't said that word, it could have been something. Who knows?
Right.
You know, we think we have control of our lives, and when we think, but there it is, and you
Well,
went with it, you ran with it.
okay, so yeah, so yes, we don't always have control over that, but we've got to put ourselves out there. And I think the challenge is so often we say, well, I won't tell anyone what I'm doing until I have it all figured out and so perfectly organized. And I think
Yeah,
what Silicon Valley taught me so much is, no, you just put visions out there. You tell people what you're doing, and then they'll tell you what they need in that solution you're creating. I've evolved this solution for 20 years because people tell me what they need. And so then I create
yeah,
another
yeah.
tool or a workshop or a guide or something. They tell me what they need.
So, yeah, that's really interesting. So, so I worked with you for a year or so, maybe a little bit more, and I helped you with your website when you
Yeah.
were promoting it online, et cetera, et cetera. And then I don't know how long you've been doing your newsletter, but I'll show the newsletter.
I've been
I
doing it
read
since
it religiously every
2015. Thank
week.
you.
It's
Thank
called
you.
Flash Mentoring.
Flash mentoring. Yep. I've been doing it,
And
Robert, since 2015. March
wow,
20, 2015. Yeah.
wow.
But
And
because of you, can I say that part that can we pause
yeah,
for a moment? Because I've been on your list, because you would send an email every week and you were on my radar, and I thought, how am I going to stay on people's radar? I need them to hire me to speak so I can pay my programmers. I need people to know what I'm doing so that I don't accidentally say the word mentoring. I need them to think of me when they hear that word. And so I needed to
yeah.
be in front of people every week. And so I just made a commitment. I'm going to follow in Robert's footsteps, and I'm sending something out every week. I promise you, what I sent out in March 2015, it was not that great, but it only went to 13 people. Now it goes to 18,000. But I was like, I am just going to send something out.
Yeah. You know how rare that is? Because I've recommended this to almost everybody I've worked with, but only a small handful, they have the wherewithal, the smarts, the passion, the commitment, the focus, and it takes all that kind of thing to do it. And you have that in spades. I mean, you work really hard, and you just got the concept. If I stay in touch with people with my ideas, stuff will start happening. And it also, what else did you find from doing the newsletter, how it helped
Yeah.
you in your business?
So good. So first of all, let's just say that I struggled with it for a year or two before that because I thought maybe my newsletter should be this beautifully designed section. Oh, and I just made myself crazy and I never sent it out. And I thought, no, I just got to send some words out there. So I did struggle for a bit getting that routine started. And then I've written a few books. And I thought, well, what if and I've also always found that in between books, I get a little stale if I don't write more. And Katie Ledecky, she swims 7 days a week. Most swimmers take Sundays off, but her coaches discovered on Monday morning that the 48 hours between Saturday morning and Monday morning weren't doing her any favors. And they said to her, literally, here are the keys to the clubhouse. Just come in and swim any bit that you'd like on Sunday. Just get in the water. And so she swims 7 days a week. So she's not like that atrophy's not there. So I look at it the same way and say,
Yeah.
I just needed to write something in between writing books. And so what I like so much about this is it's kind of for me as well. I keep honing my writing. It's gotten better over the years. I've found things to write about that are relevant, that are out there. How can I keep tying what's happening out there back to mentoring? So yeah, it's definitely improved that too.
Yeah, I find that as well. If you're not writing, you're just not thinking in a certain way. So when I retired, I said I got to keep writing or my mind will turn to mush.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And
yeah.
I can't say it's easy. Sometimes I sit there with massive amounts of imposter syndrome. Like, what am I writing? Like, this isn't any good, or why am I writing this? And then I go through is anybody reading this? And what the heck? So I go through a lot of that. And it helps. I found if I start earlier and just start thinking about things, like, because I write every Wednesday night. So I starting earlier to think about what I'm going to write about. And I have to pay attention. So I still go to conferences and meet clients, and they will randomly say, oh my gosh, I get your newsletter. Oh my gosh, I read that. And I go, I pause and I think, there it is, Ann. And I say to the person, I go, I'll think of you when I'm writing my newsletter next week, because I have to remember someone's reading this. So I go, okay, someone's reading this. But then I also have to go, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So I get in some of that, like, maybe I should change a couple of words. Maybe it should be more perfect. And I have to go, you know what? That woman might have read it, but a bunch of people aren't. It's okay. Just get it out there. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the topics, because, in a way, the newsletter is a reflection of your business.
Yes.
And you're always, one thing I like about it, and I think you do it better than almost anybody, is you find a human interest story that's related to mentoring, as opposed to here's a concept. Here's just a concept. Mentoring is really important because when you do blah, 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 and that kind of goes in one ear and not the other.
Yeah.
And that's harder to do, to come up with a relevant story, because you're looking out there. But anyway, so you come up with stories.
Well,
And
I
the
have
one
to.
that you just wrote was
Yeah.
about that woman you just mentioned. What's her name?
Katie
Katie Ledecky.
Ledecky. Yeah.
And she's a Olympic swimmer.
Hmm. Yeah. And she won the 1500-meter freestyle. I mean, she crushed it. And she gets out of the pool. And they said, what goes through your mind for 15 minutes, 30 laps? And she said, I started thinking of every person that has supported me along the way. I listed their names off. I said their names in my head. My mind started
Wow.
wandering that way. Now, what's funny is if Michael Phelps was interviewed last night after her and said, my mind has never wandered when I swim. I am so focused on the numbers and the laps. And he goes, I can't believe her mind was wandering. That is just, it's a testament to how incredibly trained she is, that she knows her laps and her splits. But I thought, isn't that great? She's thinking of the people who have influenced her. So I thought, well, that'd be great to write on. She's meditating on her mentors at the Olympics. Oh my gosh. And yeah, Robert, I can't even stand reading mentoring books. I think they're so boring. And so I certainly don't want my newsletter to be, here's what to say here's how to, I was like, oh, so yawn. I want it to be fun, and let's connect the things that are out there to mentoring.
Yeah. So let's just talk about some core mentoring principles. And the first question is, why is mentoring important? What place does it have in society and work, and what difference does it make? It's obviously an endless topic, because in a way, mentoring is always happening. If you work for a job, even if you're me, I'm an independent professional. I didn't have a lot of mentors, but I read a lot of books, and my books were my mentors.
True. That's a good way to
So
put it. Yep. Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
so
So
there's
I think the challenge is the word mentor. So I say this all the time, and yet I think that's the biggest challenge. Is I could look at you, Robert, and say you were one of my mentors as I go through. But
yep,
you didn't call yourself that. You were the marketing guru. You were a coach, and so we conflate these terms a lot. But Jimmy Iovine said at the induction speech to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he said, nobody gets to moments like this on their own. He said, and I didn't.
yeah,
None of the other inductees to the Hall of Fame did. We just don't get here alone. And Katie Ledecky said that in her interview last night as well. She said, you don't get to a moment like this by yourself. And that's right. You get to those milestone moments because of the people around you. I could care
yeah,
less if you actually call them mentor, and if you lean into that term mentoring, but it is there. It is the undercurrent that is flowing throughout all of our successes. We're leaning into other people. We can only get so much out of ChatGPT and Google, like the intersection of the
yeah,
relationship, the advice, the process we go through of figuring this out. What am I going to take from what Robert says? How am I going to apply that? I don't have to be a mini me of Robert, but I want to take what he said and apply it. That critical thinking we do doesn't happen when we ask ChatGPT to solve a problem for us. So that's what I think is so important, why it is a part of society and work. Like, we need those bonds, we need those connections. And now let's take that past the chit chat and say, what advice, what can I learn from this person that would help me become a bigger, better, bolder version of myself?
yeah. It's, in mentoring, or coaching and mentoring are not very far apart. It's just different words for a very similar thing.
I agree.
But, and then there's training, and there's whatever. It's all sort of similar. I'm learning from someone else's wisdom. And the better the mentor, the better they are at imparting the right thing at the right time. Swimming is swimming. What do? You get in the water and you move your arms. I mean, but it's like there's so many subtle things to become a champion.
Yeah.
Really subtle things.
There are subtle things, but I'll tell you my secret, okay, to mentoring. Because what you just said, you got to know the right thing at the right time. I think mentoring, to be a really great mentor, whether you call yourself that or not, is being in the moment and knowing what the person needs. So being aware, does this person that you're talking to, do they need advice? Because we all got it and we could just spew it out there, but that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily make us a good mentor. Do they need that advice at the moment? Do they need someone to listen to them? Do they need validation? Maybe they need a connection. Maybe they need a back and forth of exploring ideas, or I got a different perspective. Like being a good mentor is just paying attention and then pivoting. It's like a dance. I'm pivoting. I'm going, okay, right now they need me just to listen. Right now they need me to validate. Like, it's okay where you're at. Great. What are we doing next? And then we shift. All right. What are we doing next? And I wrote a newsletter. I think it was 2 weeks ago about The Bear. Do you watch The Bear? The TV show?
do. I just finished it a couple days ago.
Okay, so that very last episode, yes, that conversation he had between Chef Andrea and Chef Carmi, that was a dance, like a little validation, a little recognition. Oh, let me give you some advice. Oh, let me ask you, like that whole dance I dissected in one of my newsletters, because that's mentoring. It's not, hey, let me just give you some advice. It's Chef Andrea knew he needed a little encouragement. Chef Andrea knew that he needed to be validated. Like, it's okay not to know. And it's okay. So she danced in that moment with him. And that's really great mentoring. You've got to move the conversation. It's not just spewing advice at somebody.
Right. I wonder what kind of mentoring the writers of that show got over time. I mean, the writing is brilliant beyond brilliant.
Brilliant.
The whole. I know maybe people aren't into The Bear. You should see it. Maybe you'll like it or not. The third season was mostly close-up shots of two people talking, and there was no
dropping the F-bomb, and
a lot of that.
a lot of origin stories. So talk about ordinary visionaries. There's a lot of origin stories that come out of season 3 to understand how did they get here. And what I find so fascinating, and why I'm so glad you're doing all these interviews, is everyone's got a story. We're just not asking, but everyone's got something that brought them to the moment they're with you. What is that story? What had them have a vision around their career or their business that had them pivot and go in this direction? We learn so much about people, and then there's some wisdom we can glean from that. Now I'm back to mentoring, but that's what I love about people's origin stories, is you can learn so much when they're reflecting back and saying, this is why I made that decision, or what I learned. And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. If you're just reflecting on, you're in a similar place that what I was back 10 years ago. You're going through that now, and something that I had an insight about, whatever. There's no perfect thing. But the other thing is some people are much better mentees than other people.
Well, I think everyone should be a better mentee. I'm sorry. Here's my thing. I like to edit things out of my life. People, stuff, activities. I just want to get rid of stuff. I'm editing my life. I will edit anybody who shows up and they have it all figured out. All right, well, there's nothing. We're not exploring, talking, learning from each other. You got all the answers. So I tend to not want to talk to those people again. I think we should all be better mentees. And even if you believe in something, there's still another perspective that might be interesting. And if you're not willing to even listen, then that's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you sat down with Michelangelo or Leonardo, wouldn't that be great if we could? They would probably say, we know nothing.
I know. Yeah.
Relative to what there is to know, we're pretty good at what we do, but we know nothing. And there's always something to learn, always something to explore, always something to learn from an insight from nature. I mean, the world is giving us ideas. I don't know. Do you spend much time listening to podcast interviews?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do, because I get some ideas for my newsletters off of podcasts. Some are just entertaining, and they also take a different. Some dive deep in a mentoring conversation, like Trevor Noah's. His is really like he's really exploring a topic versus like a Willie Geist. on Sunday morning, he really wants to know your story, but he's not exploring it to learn for himself as much as he just wants to promote you and your book or your movie, right? And then there's smartless, and they just want to banter for the heck of it, but they're not really learning much. You're just hanging out with the guys. So I think even the different
Yeah.
podcasts, how they are conducted, they're learning or they're just entertaining too.
Yeah, I should check out Trevor Noah's because I like the guy. I didn't even know he had a podcast, for
It
God's
just
sake.
started a few months ago, so you're not too far.
Everybody has a podcast now,
I know.
including me. So, as a mentee, I want to, or people want to be a better mentee. I want to learn. I want to be open. I want to work with my mentor to get the maximum value. And, in the earlier stages of my business, I discovered something with my clients. And what I discovered is they got stuck. And I went on a search to figure out how do I help people get unstuck? Because getting unstuck is a thought process. And the thought process is, I can't do this. This is too hard. This is, all these kind of limiting kinds of things.
True.
And when you're in that place, you can't learn. You can't try new things. You're afraid. What are some of your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That stuck process is that valley of despair. Like, it doesn't make a difference. I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? Does it matter what I'm doing? And
I can't do this. It's beyond me. I'm not worthy. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Blah, blah. Yeah. And so I agree. That is a perfect time to, and look, whether you join a program or call someone your mentor, have more mentoring conversations. Lean in and say, what am I missing? What do you see that I don't see? What are your thoughts? I'm trying this. What do you think is next? Because here's the thing, we cannot be stuck and in action at the same time. You just can't. It's actually impossible. You cannot be stuck in an action at the same time. So any action.
Yeah, well, what we do is we do delay tactics and avoidance and creative procrastination and marking time, but we're not really moving forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call that action. So when you're taking actions, you're an inquiry, you're moving something a little bit forward, you have to change your mindset to do those little things. And that then was the snowball effect to get you out of that valley of despair. And so that's it. I mean, I can't say I've never been there myself. And so, my mom passed away a few months ago. That was like really hard to get out of bed. I have to tell you, that first couple of weeks was just, I spent so long caring for her, and that gave me purpose driven there. And then to have that not there, it was really hard for me. But then someone gave me some advice. They said, tell me about your mom. And I said, she got up every morning at 5:00 and she worked out. She did the laundry. She did so much before everyone else. And they said, in honor of your mom, try that. Try doing that, doing what she would do early in the morning instead of staying in bed. And it was just a little shift for me. And so then the trick is to follow the commitment, not the feeling, because I didn't feel like getting out of bed. But the commitment I made was, I'm going to do this and honor my mom. So that commitment then has to be louder than how I felt in the moment.
Yeah. What are some of the other barriers to being effectively mentored? I'm sure you've bumped into this with clients in your life.
Yeah. If you don't know where you're going, it's hard for someone to make a difference for you. Now, mentors only want to make a difference. Again, whether we call them mentors or not, people only want to give advice, share resources, cheer you on, encourage you if they think it's going to make a difference. So if you don't know where you're headed, then they don't know how to make a difference. So having some idea of what you need is going to open it up. Because if you say, I'm looking for this, then they go, oh, I can help you with that. It triggers that pro-social behavior that we have. But if you say, hey, Robert, I'm stuck. They probably don't even say I'm stuck. They go, hey, Robert, can you mentor me? Or typically what they say is, no, I got all the answers. Nope, I have it all figured out. And they're not open to it. But the minute you say, here's what I'm headed to, and it's a little bit vulnerable because you're saying, I'm aiming for this and I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
Or I'm not quite sure. Or I love any advice you have. It's vulnerable. You're saying I need help, but it allows the mentoring to happen. And if we go back to Katie Ledecky for a second, so she swims with this. So if you watch her freestyle, she pulls herself. She doesn't kick a lot. She pulls, so her arms are doing most of the work, and she has this buoy that she puts between her legs, like her knees, to hold her legs steady. So she's just using her arms, and she knew
really.
She knew a number she needed to get to, and she wrote that number on the buoy, the split time that she had to get to, and she wrote that in there, and she'd look at it every day, and she told her coaches or trainers, she just said, this is a number I'm getting to. She knew where she wanted to go. And I'm telling you right now, the Olympics aren't over, and she has said, I will be at 2028 Olympics. So she puts that out there, and that allows other people to say, good, let me help you get there. And that's it. So I think the biggest barrier for all of us is we just don't tell people that's where I'm headed. If we say that's where I'm headed, they'll go, all right, I know somebody, I know something. How can I cheer you along? How can I help? But we don't do that enough. We don't say that's where I'm headed. We go, I'll see what today unfolds. I got a couple calls. We'll see what happens. And then we look forward to it. Right? We go, I don't know what's going to happen. And then how can you aim there, and how can someone help you if you don't point to something?
Yeah, you're not really playing the game. But right. the other thing is, for the mentor, often the job for the mentor is to keep asking, exploring, what do you want? Where are you going? What's important to you? Why is it important?
Here's another one, Robert. Here's another one. What have you already tried? What have you already tried? Because you're showing up in that moment, and I give you some advice, and you've already tried that. I don't look really good, do I? I look like, well, that was not a lot of fun. But if I say, hey, what have you already tried? And you tell me, and I'll go, okay, well, that's probably, I would have given you that advice. So why didn't it work? And let me give you a different piece of advice.
Yeah. Sometimes I would work with people that really wanted to attract clients. They really wanted to. They weren't making enough money, whatever reason. But they drifted. They weren't focused. They just, it happened. They're paying me. I'm giving my best advice. And then I meet them next week and they haven't done diddly squat. I mean, that happens, I suppose.
It does happen. But attracting more clients is not the destination that I'm pointing to. That's the means to where they're going. And maybe that's the problem, is they're focused on getting more clients. But instead they should say, Robert, I want my business to be $1 million. I want my business to be funded. I want my business to be sold. Or I want my business to make enough money that I can go on vacation. Now I need to attract more clients to get there. And I think that we don't do that. We go, oh, I need a better website. I need to write some more copy, as opposed to, where are you headed for all of this? Maybe that could give them that, I am going to call someone.
Some days, wouldn't you like to rewind your life to, let's go back 20 years and be able to do some of those things better than I could before? I am working with an interesting challenge. I'm working with a local guy who is homeless.
Oh.
And I met him on the street nearby. He's part of the homeless community in Boulder Creek.
You've written about this in one of your newsletters. I remember this.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of a mentor to him, and I also give him some work, yard work and stuff like this. And he is a challenge. He is really a challenge. And but you've mentored me about how to mentor him. It's like, because I'm always focusing on, what you can do. I had a long talk with him the other day about reliabilities, just not reliable. But I don't know if that helps him too much. Maybe a little. He says, oh, yeah, it's helping me. But to really, really find out, what does he really, really want? And because he has no expectations. He's been homeless. He's 42 years old. He's been on the streets for half his life.
And
it's
whether we're talking about homelessness or someone who's stuck in their job, right? These are just
Yeah.
places we're at, and we get used to them, don't we? We kind of get used to them. We're like, this is what I know. And to really shift out of there, it's like someone needs to be fired, or someone needs to really just have the courage to grab something else.
Yeah.
I mean, I started my business because I knew I was laying everybody off. I was gonna get fired. I knew that was happening. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it first and just, but going to this homeless gentleman who I love that you're caring for. But this is the world he knows. And there has to be a shift there for him at some point to say, Robert, I'm okay. This is what I want, or I want something else. I don't even know what that looks like yet. And then if he can describe that, great. Then all the things you're doing to help him can be in furtherance of that. But I mean, and there's no judgment either
Yeah.
way. Like there's no judgment. But I
Yeah.
think that's why people go, okay, like I'm trying all this, but if he's like he knows this and this is the world he knows, then that's what he's going to know until there's a shift for him.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind is hand to.
No, sorry, a possibility, right? There's got to be a possibility that that's possible. For people who are stuck in jobs, it's possible to have a different one, right? It's possible. I think that's it. Is sometimes we just don't believe that anything's possible beyond this, and so therefore, I'm just going to do what I can to survive today.
Exactly. But it's hard for you and I to relate to that, to somebody who lives in that hand to mouth. I just want to earn a few dollars today so I can eat today, and it's a different thing as opposed to, we live in the world of visions, possibilities, work. We've done it a lot. And if I look back at my very, very early days, it was kind of hand to mouth. I had terrible cash flow for a long time.
As you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, I remember times just, collecting a few dollars here and there from, putting myself through school and babysitting. And I was a hand to mouth time as well. But I promise you, Robert, I had mentors that said, it is possible for you to be a lawyer, Ann. It is possible for you to go to U of I. Like, that to me, I thought I was going to community college. No one in my family had gone to college because people said it is possible. And then I had to go, oh, it is possible. I think that's the difference. But I did the hand to mouth for a long time and I was strapped with so much debt after law school. It's gobsmacking when I think about how much. I mean, I used to charge a box of Captain Crunch just because I was pushing credit card from one to another, because I had to pay this because I couldn't pay this. So my stupid $4 box of Captain Crunch probably cost me $15 by the time I paid it off with all my interest, and it was awful.
Well, all entrepreneurs have been in that place at one time or another. It's the rare one that just, the first thing hit and they made money. That doesn't happen that often. But let's look a little bit about the mistakes that mentors make. Because, if I look back on my coaching career, I would say, nothing but mistakes.
Well,
in other words,
all a work in progress. I mean, we're all a work in progress.
I know we are. And I'm not trying to be hard on myself, but I'm not really hard on myself anymore. I accept, you just learn what you learned, and we do the best we can. But I think there's, you've probably seen it, mistakes that mentors make that make their mentoring not as effective as it could be. And what are some of your insights about that?
Well, we can highlight the one we just said, not knowing where the mentee is going. And again, I'm using the term mentor and mentee, but it could be any two people who are having a conversation that is more than chit chat. I want to make a difference for you. And so we're having that kind of conversation. So if I don't know where you're going and I'm just, hey, I've got some ideas for you and some advice, but it's not going to be as effective because you haven't told me where you're headed. If I'm not asking you questions, so question marks should always come before periods. I should ask you questions first. Tell me more. What has worked? What hasn't? What advice? Where do you need some help? What is challenging you? So not asking questions, and then giving advice, and then expecting the person to have the context. Like sometimes we give advice and we don't give the context. And it makes sense in your head, but you've only given the one piece and not the picture. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to the other person. Yeah. And then again, as I said before, thinking the person needs advice when maybe they just need some role playing, some strategy, some ideas, some a new perspective, or maybe they just need validation. And so assuming the person needs what we've got. I've also seen people take it personally when their mentee, I say in air quotes, doesn't take action, doesn't apply what they've used. And it's almost like
I lost sleep over that.
No, like I know, but like I gave you a gift. Why are you not using this?
Yeah.
But people, people do the best they can with what they've got and dealing with their own mental state at that moment.
Yeah. And we forget that we learned what we did in a kind of organic way. We read this book, we tried this thing, we learned this thing, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly it came together. And sometimes that took a long time. And someone else's process might be very different than ours.
It's true.
And so sometimes just giving people advice can be problematic because they're not a receptacle for advice.
Right.
So sometimes you have to, ask,
Yes.
what do you really want? Where are you struggling? Right. What's the piece that you think you need to do better? And they might say, well, I think if only I could do this. And you think, aha, that's not what they need to do at all. Yeah. And so you have to sort of help them look at things in such a way. And,
we show up to these conversations because we want to make a difference. So for us to say, how can I make a difference? Where do you need some help? Like even starting that conversation, like, can I help? How could I help you best? Because I've got lots of experience, lots of ideas, lots of opinions, lots of resources, but dumping all that on you, if that's not going to be useful, is not going to it's not going to be helpful. So finding that out, I think, is key first. And you're right, Robert. Sometimes people are different. I'm a yes person. You give me, I'll try that. Yep, that sounds good. Yep. And then I sort of go, oh, probably shouldn't have said yes, or that I learned something. But I say yes a lot to the dismay of my team, who goes, oh my God, stop saying yes. Other people, because they all figure out the how, but other people are more of a slow to yes. They are more thoughtful than I am. They are more considerate. They're asking questions. They're really figuring it out first before they commit, which I appreciate it. And because it's really a very effective way to be. So sometimes if you give someone an idea or a piece of advice, they need to marinate, think about it, ask more questions, get some more outside opinions. That's just their process. I'm just, that sounds great. I'll do that. Great. Where do I sign up? I spend half my life unsubscribing to things, Robert, because I just say yes to everything. That sounds good. Here's my credit card. And then I go, oh, Ann, unsubscribe to that. Stop.
And I have no time. It's not appropriate, and I don't need it. Yeah, I understand that one.
Why am I still paying for that? Because I said yes in the moment.
Yeah. Well, there's so many aspects to life and what makes life work. I often say there's two parts to life, happiness and success. And they go hand in hand, and if you're really successful but not happy, what good is that? And if you're relatively content but you're always broke and nothing's working, it's like like my homeless guy. He's always very cheerful and happy and hardworking and absolutely clueless about putting his life together, is saving money, all of those things.
No, and are we not measuring people by our own standards?
Yes.
Right? Like we're imparting our thing on other people, like, but they could be happier. They could be more successful. They could be, right? I mean, they are where they're at in the moment, and that's what they've chosen. And when they choose something else, well, we're ready. If that person wants to leave their job, we're ready. If they want me to show them it's possible, I'm ready for that. I think they don't have to do it my way. And I think I've learned that over the years is just because I get up and do a talk and tell you how to do something doesn't mean you have to do it my way. And
No.
I've gotten that lesson like over the years of, you know what, people are there. I don't have to project my way of doing things or on you and expect you to be like me.
Yeah. And that's hard because we have egos.
Yes. Well, and also we see for people sometimes what they don't see for themselves. And if they're not
Sure.
there ready to be like, okay, I'm ready for what's possible. Let's go. I'm ready to be in this learning journey. If they're not there, that's just where they're at. And we can say, when you're ready, I can't wait to help you. Let me know when you're ready. Now for you, Robert, people think they're ready and they pay you money. So you'd think they'd be ready to take some action because they paid you money. But
Yeah.
sometimes, as you said, paying the money is just kind of a distraction and they think I've taken action when that's just getting you
Yeah.
up to the table.
Yeah. Well, my coaching days for marketing are over, but something that this person does. His name is Chris. There's a little park in Boulder Creek, just before the bridge on the way to my house. We live in the woods, basically in Boulder Creek. He takes care of that park, and he takes care of the plants, and he rakes things. And he makes, so he likes doing that kind of stuff. Doesn't make any money at it. Sometimes the
Well,
park department pays him a
I,
little bit of money, but
mean, don't you
I
wonder,
ought to.
Robert? And it would be fun to ask him this. Do you wonder, like, does he look at the rest of us who are driving hours to get places, jumping on planes, sitting on Zoom calls, emailing, working too late doing things? Does he look at us like, oh, that doesn't look fun whatsoever? Like, that looks
Right.
horrible. And I'd much rather take care of this park. Like, I wonder what his perspective is of, like, the
Oh yeah.
grind.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Well, he's essentially a manual laborer. He can do gardening, he can do digging, he can do all those kinds of things. He has a little bit of a drug problem. If you're smoking dope all the time, you're not very motivated. But nevertheless, he's a good person at heart.
Well, and I
You
bet
know?
he thinks he's a good person too. I mean, his situation does not define him as a good person. I mean,
No.
and
I mean, there's some people that are just jerks and scam artists and lazy and
of course,
you know.
yeah,
So
I think that's probably one of the problems with, not to dive this into a homeless problem in the country, but we look at people and go, they're no good, they're lazy, whatever. They created this situation when they're good people, and if we start with that, and then we go
yeah.
from what do they want next, and how do we help that? I don't think it.
Yeah, so when you're mentoring somebody, if you're a mentee, I mean we have expectations of the person we're mentoring, and often those are unrealistic. It's like we're putting them in a box, sort of like what you said before. But on the other hand, as a mentee, I put myself in my own box. I see you ridiculously successful, et cetera, and I can't imagine that. At a certain point in my business, I realized I wasn't going to be the hard-hitting, going out and doing big workshop kind of person. Because I saw these people making zillions of dollars, and I went, it's just not me. I did a tour of the country doing 11 workshops over a few months. And after I did it, I said, great, I don't have to do that anymore. That
I love
really
that.
wasn't
Yeah.
really wasn't fun for me. It was just not, yeah.
And Robert, I think one of the other challenges we all have, and the internet and social media has really exacerbated this, is social comparison. We look at
Oh
others and
yeah.
go, oh gosh, I'm never going to be that successfulter. But then to
Yeah.
stop and go, but I don't want that life. Like, I don't want to do that. There was a time I thought I'm going to be a keynoter. I'm going to be on the big stage with thousands of people and do this talk. And you know what I realized? I'm a one and done then. I am up there. I'm doing the thing. And then I leave. And did I make a difference? Did they remember me? Did I engage with anybody? Did I create anything? No, I just did this. And So and I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying for me, I needed more to fill my soul. And so I said, okay, that's not for me. And I created something different. But yeah, like we compare ourselves so much to what others are doing. Like, oh, it has to be that way. And I think what you've done is great. Like you just go, this is the community I've created and where I want to serve.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful of that because it could really stuck us as well. Oh, I can't possibly start this because I'll never make it look as good as that or that. And that social comparison just is
Yeah.
paralyzing.
And some ideas work and some don't.
Yeah.
Like you, I just tried a lot of different things. I wrote my book, The Infoguru Manual, and that became a bestseller. I mean, I paid for my house, for God's sake.
I love that. And
but
nothing I've written has ever done that, Robert. So I look at that and go, oh, I want that. It's like so cool.
But I also realized, I could go into business teaching people how to make a book that made a lot of money. And I went, no, this was a one-off. I was at the right place at the right time with the right energy and the right information when the internet was at a certain place. And so some things, it's just like I really ran with it. And I think, for you, it's like we get, there's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that goes nowhere and sometimes it blossoms,
Absolutely. I have started other businesses that did not go anywhere. I did a conference business as well. I'm like, I'm going to go do conferences and bring people together. And for the 47th time of my name tag is not correct. And where's my turkey sandwich? I thought, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I could do that. But I look back, Robert, if I would not start my business today, because to your point, right time, right place, all those things lined up for me at that time. And I think for all of us, we just have to pay more attention when those things happen, to grab them and to try something versus having it all figured out. But I would never start this today. It's so much money, the IT, the cybersecurity, all of it is just daunting and unbelievable. I don't think I would do it at all.
Yeah. But you did. You made it. You're successful. You're happy at it. And, the thing that resonates with you, Ann, is you love the idea of mentoring.
I do.
You just love that, the dynamic of that, the lessons in that. You can write about it. So you were the mentoring guru. It's not about, I'm a mentoring guru. It's just what you love. It
really does fill my soul when we do we'll do a final celebration at the end of a program and people come together and they start talking about their relationship and what they learned in their mentor. And I go, oh my God, I brought them together. That's so cool. Like I get really excited. Like I played a role in them meeting and connecting and learning from each other in a very intentional way. And I get really excited about that.
And it's been really fun having this conversation. I wish we could do it for hours, but we can't. So,
Robert, thank you so much for being one of my mentors. I've learned so much from you. And if you like that newsletter, that's because of you. I mean, it's like you gave me permission to do that, and said it's possible. And I never would have thought it was possible to write every single week. So that was huge.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for getting value from my work. It really makes a difference to me personally, to know that I made a difference,
Oh, you so did. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann.